You use dozens of products every day, and almost none of them reach you by accident. Behind every item you touch lies a global system working quietly in the background, rarely acknowledged and even less understood. Most people imagine global trade as something simple: ships crossing oceans, trucks delivering goods, shelves being restocked. But the system that actually keeps the world running is far more complex, far more fragile, and far more powerful than it appears. Everything in your home, your phone, your clothes, your furniture, even the food in your kitchen, exists because an enormous, unseen machine moved it through thousands of checkpoints, approvals, financial layers, and logistical decisions. And what's strange is this: the people who rely on this system the most rarely ever think about it. Because global trade works best when it stays invisible. Every single day, long before most cities wake up, the world's supply chain is already fully awake. Millions of workers, thousands of ships, fleets of trucks, endless warehouses, and a vast digital infrastructure begin moving goods with a precision that looks almost impossible. Not because humans are perfectly coordinated, but because the architecture of global trade has been engineered to run like a silent organism. At the center of this organism sits something unbelievably simple: a metal box. The shipping container. A plain steel rectangle that quietly controls the world's economy. There are around 20 million of these containers circulating the planet at any given moment. They appear identical, but each one is a tiny moving piece in a global choreography. A container that leaves a factory in Shenzhen might arrive at a port in Rotterdam, then travel by rail into Germany, then return to Asia carrying something entirely different. And through this constant motion, global trade stays alive. But the hidden truth is that just a handful of corporations control almost all of this movement. 3 major shipping alliances dominate nearly 80% of global sea freight. Goods don't simply travel, they move when these alliances allow them to move. If even one of them stops, factories on the other side of the world stop too. Supermarkets empty, production lines go silent. This is the first layer of global trade's hidden architecture, a system that looks decentralized, but in reality is controlled by a surprisingly small number of players. The second layer sits on the coastlines, the ports. Ports are the real power centers of the world economy. They look like giant industrial landscapes, full of cranes, containers, trucks, and towering machinery. But what makes them powerful isn't just their size, it's their scarcity. Out of more than 4,000 ports worldwide, only about 50 handle the majority of global trade. These few locations are the arteries of the modern world. If just one of them shuts down for even 48 hours, billions of dollars evaporate, supply chains collapse, and entire industries fall behind schedule. And most people assume these ports are controlled by governments. They're not. Some of the world's most critical ports are run by private operators: Dubai's DP World, Singapore's PSA International, and China's COSCO network. These companies determine what goods move first, which ships get priority, and how fast global cargo circulates. A delay in Shanghai can cause empty shelves in Los Angeles. A slowdown in Rotterdam can create steel shortages in Turkey or car part shortages in Brazil. Economists have a phrase for this: ports are the new borders, not the lines on a map, but the bottlenecks that decide whether the world keeps running or stops. As global trade grew more complex, another layer quietly formed. One you can't see, hear, or touch. A digital spine that holds everything together. Before a container even moves an inch, it produces a river of data: customs approvals, insurance checks, financing confirmations, routing algorithms, security scans, commodity price updates. This information flows through a handful of global digital networks. And if these networks go down, trade stops immediately, even if every port and every ship is fully operational. Some of these systems are nearly unknown to the public. Platforms like CargoSmart and the Global Shipping Business Network coordinate shipping data between thousands of companies. Financial messages for trade settlements run through infrastructures similar to SWIFT. Some ports rely entirely on cloud-based software that tracks container movements with millimeter precision. If the software crashes, the port literally cannot operate. This is why experts say global trade is now more digital than physical. Goods don't move because a crane lifts them or a ship sails. They move because a database somewhere approved the motion. But even with all this coordination, the global system has a terrifying weakness: choke points, narrow passages where the entire flow of trade squeezes through: the Strait of Hormuz, the Panama Canal, the Suez Canal, the Strait of Malacca, only a few kilometers wide, yet essential to trillions of dollars of goods. If one of these choke points is blocked, even for a single day, the world feels it instantly. Energy markets spike, shipping schedules collapse, retail prices jump, all because a ship or a political dispute disrupted a tiny piece of geography. The most famous example was the Ever Given, the massive ship that got stuck in the Suez Canal. One ship in the wrong place at the wrong angle nearly froze global trade. Billions were lost each day. Hundreds of ships waited helplessly. Factories worldwide braced for shortages, all from a single accident. But here's the unsettling truth. The world's supply chain breaks down even more easily than that. Because the biggest vulnerability isn't physical, it's time. Global trade runs on a razor-thin schedule. Containers must arrive, unload, reload, and depart on a strict rhythm. If a ship is delayed even 2 days, that delay spreads like a contagion across the entire system. Warehouses overflow, factory inventories run out, workers wait with nothing to assemble. Prices rise because goods are trapped mid-route. We saw this during the pandemic. A delay in one part of the world caused shortages everywhere else: lumber, chips, appliances, even basic groceries. The system couldn't breathe. Not because factories stopped producing, but because the architecture of trade itself became clogged. The world learned a painful lesson. Efficiency and fragility can look identical until something breaks. Another hidden layer sits even deeper: trade finance. Most of the physical trade you see, the ships, the trucks, the containers, exists only because trillions of dollars of invisible credit lines support it. When a company in Germany buys machinery from Japan, the goods don't simply move. A bank approves a letter of credit. An insurer verifies the risk. A shipping company confirms the booking. A financial institution guarantees payment. Without these invisible transactions, global trade collapses instantly. What's fascinating is how little national borders matter in this system. The real map of global trade doesn't look like a world atlas. It looks like a circuit diagram: flows of goods, ports, credit, data, and routes connecting and disconnecting across the planet. Nations don't control trade, networks do. And each network has its own logic. Shipping companies optimize for fuel, time, and alliances. Ports optimize for speed, priority, and land constraints. Banks optimize for risk, stability, and compliance. Retailers optimize for price and timing. Consumers optimize for convenience. The global supply chain is where all these interests collide. And amazingly, the system works most of the time, not because someone controls it, but because every player depends on every other player. In a strange way, global trade behaves like a living organism. It senses delays. It reroutes around disruptions. It adjusts flows like a bloodstream encountering a blockage. It tries to heal itself. But like any organism, it can only handle so much stress before it breaks. The final layer of hidden architecture is speed. The world expects goods to move faster every year. Next day delivery, 2-day shipping, just-in-time manufacturing, zero inventory. Consumers want instant access. Companies want minimal cost. Governments want economic growth. But speed makes the system fragile. The faster we push global trade, the more any small disruption creates a massive shockwave. And yet, people continue to expect the impossible, a perfectly synchronized global system that never pauses, never clogs, never breaks, and always delivers on time. The truth is, the way goods move around the world is one of the greatest engineering achievements in human history. But it is also one of the most misunderstood, underestimated, and vulnerable systems ever created. Everything you own, everything you use, everything that feels normal in daily life, relies on an architecture of trade that is constantly under pressure, constantly at risk, and constantly adapting. If global trade ever truly stopped, even for a week, the world we know would feel like it disappeared overnight.